It was the first day back to school in Fort Anne after a long, hot summer. The New York air was crisp. The leaves were slowly transforming from faded green to the brilliant colors of fall. Deep reds, tints of orange and yellow were everywhere, and you could hear the acorns as they fell from the tree and bounced off limbs. It was unusually cool, but the sun was out, and the freshly black-topped playground had a distinct smell that Eddie loved. The playground was Eddie's court. It was his domain. It was here that he was in charge. Nobody was going to take away his dominion of control that he had established. Everything had to run through him if it was going to happen, and there would be hell to pay if someone tried to bypass his authority. Everyone knew it. The new year meant new students would have to be broken in and mentored properly. This was a precise process, and Eddie had repeated it every year for the past 3 years. He looked at his fellow students lined against the solid brick wall, and he thought to himself how pathetic they all looked. Dressed in their finest new clothes, which weren't much, they almost looked stiff. That would be good for this game, Eddie thought. Eddie shouted out, "I know many of you came today prepared to play kickball, but I'm going to teach you a better game, a little game about life." Everyone seemed disappointed about the cancellation of the kickball game, and they weren't sure what he meant about life because the oldest one there was 6 years old, but this Eddie guy sure did have a nice red ball. They waited. Eddie had brought his red rubber playground ball from home. This was a fine ball. It was perfect for kickball. It rolled so smoothly from the pitcher's mound to home plate. When kicked correctly, it flew as far as the eye could see for a guaranteed home run. But this was not the quality of the ball that Eddie loved the best. On a short kick, you could catch the ball, grip it firmly in your palm and fingers, and hurl it at great speeds at the slow-running targets. One favorite shot was throwing the ball into the back of the legs behind the kneecap. For whatever reason, this almost always caused the runner to fall down, because as the ball hit, it forced the knee to buckle in. This delighted Eddie. Children got up limping, crying, or bleeding, but the game went on despite the wounds. This ball had finely printed markings on it similar to a fan all over the ball in a pattern. When the ball was taken and hurled at the face of a victim, it would leave these fine markings firmly implanted on a person's skin. Eddie would often run up to a victim and shout, "Oh my goodness, it says here on your forehead that you were made in China!" But there was a higher and greater purpose for this ball other than a stupid game of kickball. Eddie spoke softly and everyone was listening carefully. It was as if a sermon was about to begin. "I'm going to teach you a little game called dodgeball. It's not a team sport. Team sports don't show you how life really is. Dodgeball does, because it's every boy and every girl for themselves. That's what life is about. Some people call it survival of the fittest. You don't know your place on this playground, but after a few rounds of dodgeball, everyone will know exactly who you are. They'll know what you are, a player or a loser." Eddie was very kind and gentle through the explanation of the rules. He told a few jokes that everyone thought were pretty funny. He told them where to go when they were out. The children were generally excited to play the game when he had finished. Eddie looked at them all again, one by one, with a huge smile. They were smiling back. Then, as if a mask had been pulled off his face, his smile turned to a scowl, and his eyes darkened. He started bouncing the ball while trying to decide who his first victim would be. Some folks use the idea of eliminating the weak first and working your way to the best. Eddie felt that this was a bad strategy, because by allowing one to seem to have a chance, it instilled confidence in others. Based on this, he looked for those boys and the occasional girl who seemed overly confident and took them out by hitting their feet. You couldn't risk a catch. Since today was the first day of school, he had to set a tone. A fat kid was going down. Tommy Smith was only 6, and already he was showing signs of overeating. In the school cafeteria, he would buy double lunches and bargain for food with marbles or anything of value. He was easily beginning to be the target of abuse by many children, but especially some professional bullying by Eddie. Eddie saw Tommy looking just like the baby gazelle in a nature show that knew it was going to be eaten by the lion. Tommy took off running as fast as his big body was able. Eddie took precise aim. It was the classic face shot, and Tommy went down. If there was slow motion available, you would have seen Eddie watching it over and over again. The ball hit Tommy's chin, and his head jerked sideways. The spit flew out in a gob and splattered on the wall, and poor Tommy's hands flew in the air. He tried to catch himself as he fell down, but his knees hit the blacktop and cut open one kneecap section of his brand new pants. When Tommy stood up, the blood trickled through the hole and stained the fabric. Eddie laughed. He shouted, "Who's next, you losers?" Eddie methodically went through every child, modifying the basic throwing technique based on their defensive moves he observed. Obviously, he was a master of this game. After the last child went down, Eddie looked at the sniffling children huddled in the losing area, and they were all staring at him. They hated him. He stared back and once again spoke softly. "Now you know about life. Live it. Like it. Love it."